Welcome to the Hoel Roofing and Remodeling Podcast. Today, our special guest is Brian Sheehan, and he is the Director of Special Projects and Community Development here for our town, Rushville, Indiana. And I just wanted to bring Brian on and just kind of talk about several things, but really just what's going on in the community. And, you know, one thing I've always respected about you, Brian, is the positivity that you bring. Your campaign sign says smile, you know, and I think we can all agree that we need way more positivity and smiles in this world. So introduce yourself, your family, kind of your role with the City of Rushville. And you can even talk about some of the jobs you had before you joined force with the mayor and everything.
Okay. As you already said, Brian Sheehan, I'm married to Heather. Heather works down at the Baird Law Office. My son Joe is at Ball State. He's 20 years old and looking forward to 21, which is rolling up quick. And my daughter is one of the newest teachers at the high school. She's an art teacher. That had been her dream since probably well before even junior high to do that. So to be able to graduate and come back here, shout out to Miss Conley. Julie kind of kept an eye on her and knew she was coming through the system, and she retired at a perfect spot where she got to come in and kind of get her dream job. So that's the family. Quick run through of my world. It's kind of interesting when you look back. I've had kind of 5, 6, 7 year stints. I worked at Hurtig Petroleum here locally. And after that, I worked for Monarch Beverage, sells beer and wine out of Indianapolis, but I covered this area. Went to Batesville Casket for 6 years, did marketing, sales, those kinds of things, and then came back to Hurtig Petroleum for another 5. And really the reason I did that is I wanted to be back close to the community, wanted to be involved. My kids were at the age, had a very, very smart person tell me long ago that said, until your kids are like 6 or 7, they don't necessarily remember everything that happened, but they know, if you were there and around. But from 8 to 16 is the sweet spot. When you get to be there, you get to be with them. They grow, they get into sports and activities and all that. And he said around 16, 17, sometimes they start to peel off and do their own thing. But I heard that. My kids got to about that age, and Batesville is very good to me. My bank account really enjoyed my time there at Batesville. But coming home, I got a lot more involved in kind of those intrinsic things that you do it because it makes you feel good, right. And you really enjoy it. So that led me to being the city council. I was on the council for I think it's nearly a little over 12 years, and at this point, I'm the only city councilman to be elected to a 4th term. But when I got elected to that 4th term, the mayor approached me about the job, special projects and community development. I took that role on, and really just it allowed me to do some of the things I was doing, and I see some similarities in myself and you at doing things for the right reason, being positive out in the community, inspiring people. I think to try to do better themselves. And really chasing some goals, and I know that's something that you do very well. So that led me to this job, and really the last almost 7 years has been just incredible to be a part of what I believe to be one of the coolest transformations, not just in Rushville, Rush County, but maybe all of rural Indiana, to be able to take what seemed like to many a sinking ship and who's going to turn the lights off to, now, families and my kids and my daughter saying, hey, I want to move home. I want to be a part of that community. So that's kind of my quick round the bases and give you some detail.
Absolutely. That's one thing. I mean, we were talking negativity, all that kind of stuff, even before we hopped on the online. But, I hear that as trying to grow a roofing business in Rushville, like, oh, the market's not big enough. You're in a small market. You can't do that. And, me and Emily, we got into roofing sales, worked for a couple. I was selling a couple companies out of Indy, end up working for Dave Ramsey in Nashville, dream job. I'm passionate about the financial literacy for everybody. And then, Dave always says, don't run from something, run to something. And I just felt like I had some people, some mentors that, you know, kind of poured into me, and like I felt like there was more for me than working for Dave, and I absolutely loved it. I've some of my best friends are work there still, you know. However, we came back, and like I was excited because Rushville has done a lot. You know, and I know and I always tease your post. I know the age old bitch about Walmart not being here, you know. Yeah. But, you know, look at the downtown, look at, you know, Fish Moon Brewery and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, the downtown looks really nice. And, you know, and now here on the north side, the last 5, 6, 8 years, whatever it's been since a lot of the restaurants and stuff, you know, have popped up, you know, and it's nice. Like, I'm proud that, you know, I love Rushville. Like, I truly like the community, like the FFA, the 4-H, like the FFA and 4-H done so much for me personally, you know, and, you know, so it's just, it's cool because like, it was funny you say that, you know, thank you for them kind words, because somebody told me they consider me Mr. Rush County and they consider you Mr. Rushville. And, you know, like,
that's awesome.
I just want, like, you know, and these always go back to like a legacy, and like what you're talking about is like, what do you want your legacy? Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a big bank account, but there's also nothing wrong with, you know, what you've done, because your legacy is going to live on in Rushville long after you're gone, you know. And, you know, another thing, you brought up your daughter being an art teacher. Like, I remember seeing your Facebook post about her being able to go debt-free to college due to scholarships, due to being smart where she went and all that kind of stuff. And like, I'm like, yes. And I didn't have a direct influence on that. Like, we've been in the school now for a few years, sponsoring the financial literacy, and we're starting to hear some stories, but it's so cool to hear that somebody, you know, somebody local, and she wants to come back and pour back into our communities, because teachers aren't paid enough. And, you know, we all had teachers that just mailed it in, but then we had teachers like, for me, Mr. Orm, that put in so many hours, and, you know, his lasting legacy is going to be massive, you know. So, you know, just that your daughter can come back, and, you know, like you said, people are starting to move back in, like some of my classmates, and it's been a little while since we graduated, but I've done a couple roof projects up in Indy, and a couple of them's been like, hey, we're looking, like, we want to get back. And I was like, you know, that's cool, you know. And yeah, it's just, it's a testament of how much work has been put in. Like, you know, for what you guys have done in the city has taken a lot. You've eaten a lot of shit sandwiches, and, you know, people crap on you and complain. It's no different than us trying to grow a business. You know, our team is big. Our team is awesome. Like, it's Adam behind the cameras. It's Ellie answering the phone. It's Bobby Ann out strumming up more business. It's our sales guys taking care. You know, it's all that combined is what's given us the success, and it's no different than you guys. And sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes you wonder, like, you know what? It may be easier for you to go work that job in Batesville and have a lot more money and more people to actually there'd be less people that hate you. Like, you know, maybe not more people that would like you, but less people that, you know, would complain, because you always hear them complainers about, you know, the Walmart building, or do we really need another pizza spot? And it's like, business is capitalism works.
And it's tough because, for one, people want something different, but they don't want change.
Absolutely.
And so as you start going, and I'll admit, I mean, there's plenty of times in my life where somebody changes something that I'm like, you know, your gut instinct is to fight off change. But when you've done the research and you know that the things that you're doing, the things that you're investing in, the people you're trying to partner with, all make sense when you've studied other communities, you know, big and small. Here's what worked for them. So that's what I don't think a lot of people understood in the beginning. This wasn't harebrained ideas. These were research, study, certainly risk, but well calculated. So yeah, that it does certainly at times, just because I think I do a happiness seminar, and so we need to combine some time and talk happiness and financial at the same time. But it truly is, you develop habits, and no different than if you want your bank account or your financial situation to improve, you've got to make tough changes. If you want to diet, you've got to make tough changes. And if you want to be happier, you know, those are conscious efforts that you're going to make, and soon they become habits. And that, you know, that goes to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Absolutely. Which is one of the greatest books that still stands time of those things. certainly tie into both things that we're talking about.
Right, absolutely.
And I did want to mention, you mentioned Blair Orem, and I think one of the things my spot has allowed me to do, your spot, doing podcasts and things like this is allowing you to, is to celebrate those champions in our community, highlight them, and have more people want to be like them. My intern program, I would put up against anyone in the state. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, Mason Gordon won intern of the year for the state of Indiana. Probably would have won it this year, but I missed the timeline. Nicholas Newman did, just a fantastic job for me, and still does some stuff with us. But I've tied into the FFA program, and they're kids that they've had, I think, 4 state officers. We've had Mason Gordon, we've had Nicholas Newman. I'm working with Kelby Roberts right now, who is through the community service class at the high school, and whether Blair's lucky, I'm lucky, or a mixture of the two, we must do something right. I mean, those kids are doing, a huge amount of work. Last year's bicentennial, which I think went off extremely well, was largely, I may come up with a decent amount of the ideas and kind of knew where I wanted to go, but then those kids joined, they added to the ideas, and they were the workforce that, put together 8 events at the Princess Theater. They helped me get the concert series. They helped me with the parade. They helped get the cake. They helped do all that. And one of the reasons is they were allowed to join us and be part of our team.
Right.
I always said, I don't staple kids to projects. They do projects when they come to the city. So, and I know they have had a large amount of training from Blair and the FFA program before they get to me, which is just awesome.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with you taking some credit for that, because you're pouring into these kids. Mr. Orem, like I said, has spent hundreds and thousands of hours on kids like me. Like, I remember my senior year, I was being a little bit of a arrogant little senior, and he freaking jerked my knot right in front of him, and he pulled me into his office. He's like, "Hey, dude, you're a senior, and there's freshmen and sophomores looking up to you." He's like, "Quit being an idiot."
Yep.
And I was like I wanted to be mad at him, but now I look back and it's like, dang, I appreciate that, and he's my neighbor, so I call him randomly when I pass him. It's just like, "Hey, man, what's up? Can I help you with anything?" And yeah, it's cool to see that, because like you said, several state officers, like that's a big to do. Them guys, they get a ton of training. Mason, the state officers, like the amount of leadership that they go through, like them kids can go about anywhere and get a job because of what they're going to bring. And there's nothing better than experience. Like, you just got to get out and try it. Whatever it is. Like you said, there's a lot of calculations. Like, you guys at the city, like, you're strategic about things. I'm strategic about business things, and they don't always work. Sometimes it makes me look stupid.
The idea was going to work, but
yeah. Well,
execution doesn't always.
I always say I'm going to either look like an idiot or a hero. In 6 months, we're going to see. And that's kind of seems like it's how I live my life. I'm like, just the next 6 months, but, and just like I said, like, your community involvement, your positivity, and I'll give you a shout out. I'll thank you again for this building that we're in. Like, we were looking for a more permanent location, and I wanted Rushville, and we had some people trying to send us to Knightstown and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with Knightstown, but I was like, I want a building in Rushville. That's home for me. And, we were looking around, and I called you, and you gave me a couple ideas, and they, end up being dead ends or just wasn't the right fit. And then you connected me here on this building. I made the phone call, came and looked at it. It was, never on the market. And yep. I'm so thankful. I just took you through the building and showed you that a year later we freaking darn near outgrew it. But, it's a great building. It's really nice for our team morale, the team showing up every day, the sales guys in and out. It's good for everybody. And it's just good for our culture, to continue to build what we're building here, So once again, thank you for that.
Well, no problem. That actually is one of the things that I think is kind of something I do quietly behind the scenes. But a few years back, I'd start getting those phone calls, and then especially when people kind of say, "Hey, it looks like he might have helped get that done," or whatever. Right. So I'd get some phone calls, and the biggest thing I always say, and I think you'll remember that, was like, "Hey, I get busy doing stuff. I'm going to keep this in mind. Don't be afraid to call me." Yep. And you were persistent, kept calling me, keeping it front of mind. This thing popped open, and I was like, "I think this is perfect." Made the phone call, and I'm out of the way. But trying to connect people who want to be in our community, people who want to invest in our community, people who want to set up shop in our community. I can't make sure that you or anybody else is successful after that. But what I can guarantee is I'm going to get you to the point where now here you go.
Right. Absolutely.
So I keep a list of here are all the properties I know that are available within the city. If I know of some in the county, I certainly keep those as well. But for the most part, like downtown, if there's an empty building, I know why it's empty. I know the challenge with the building. I know that whatever that process is. I know the owner. Will they sell it? Will they lease it? Just all those things. And what used to be where I think they'd come into either the city or chamber, or wherever, and we'd say, well, here are some sites. They leave with, here are four sites. Here's some names, numbers. Give it a call. So there's still some work on the person wanting to come here, but hopefully being able to kind of consolidate that has been helpful for you guys and other businesses as well.
Well, and I mean, that's just a testimony to you for like your love for the community and your willingness, because you weren't like, oh, hey, look what I did here. Like you did it quietly. Like you said, you're like, hey, reach out. And I about bought two places I would have regretted, and I'll say it again, thankfully for my wife's patience, that she's like, this is not the right building. And it got to the point I was about ready to make her go look at the building first, and she had to give me the thumbs up before I would look at it. Because like I'm a visionary, similar to you, where it's like I can walk in and I can dream anything up in my head. Now, it may not make financial sense to, tear a building down and rebuild it in Rushville, but, it just, I had some ideas on a couple of the buildings, and then, then I buy this one. And I had a buddy in town the other day, and I drove by and I was like, you remember when I was dumb enough to tell you that I wanted to buy that building, And so, yeah, I mean, most definitely, thank you for that. And kind of rolling into that, like talk a little bit about, things coming up with the community. I know the community center I've seen a little bit about it, and I know that's going to be a process. Once again, running the business, I understand that something of that size is going to take some time, some undertaking, and,
And that's one, probably the biggest projects going on right now. I personally have some involvement, but not a bunch, so I can give you just some basic details. But the community center is one. Obviously, February 1st, 2018, Walmart said they're going to close. That day sticks in my head for some reason. And I remember people just going bananas. And there was one comment in particular where, it was like, hey, this town is dead. And we had already got, from 2012 to 2016, we had some positive things going on, but all smaller in nature. 16 and 17, we win stellar. We start to get some project momentum. We're getting pretty excited. And then Walmart hits. And what was wild is we've done surveys every other year from 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22. Two of those surveys, one was done in the middle of Walmart closing and one was done in the middle of COVID. But even that said, most of the scores that we were getting continued to raise. So, tracking that perception best we can of how we're doing. The Walmart closing, I think if that happened 10 years ago, we curl up in a ball and we just die. I think this administration and even the people in general have started to look at challenges as opportunities. And as soon as that became available, it was like, okay, well, what now? We went out and we did some research. There was a convention where you go out and see, literally thousands of retailers at one time, and quickly going around and, everybody, it needs to be a Target, it needs to be a Myers, it needs to be whatever. And when you go out and do your homework, you find out that they really don't give you the time of day. When you say, hey, we're community 6,200, we lost our Walmart, and like, how much? 6,200? We don't do that. Most of those big box stores obviously rally around your bigger communities. So Indianapolis, you may see Muncie, Richmond, some of those get that. A Greenfield, Shelbyville might be able to tip their toes in just a little bit, like the Kohl's, things like that up in Greenfield, but those aren't likely to come here. And I think in the past it was always like, yeah, we're trying, or we're going to look. And I just started being very honest with people, like that is a enormous putt.
Right.
Not likely going to happen. So what are we going to do? And the interesting part is, for a lot of people, Walmart, when devastating the community financially, when we started doing the research, it really wasn't. they paid property taxes. That building still pays property taxes. All the sales income tax goes to the state, and some of that might filter back here, but not a direct correlation. The income taxes, if they kept working at Walmart and lived in Rush County, well, they paid income tax. So it was kind of weird that financially it wasn't there. But we did find that depending on your economic class, if you're lower on the totem pole and you don't have reliable transportation and you're cash only, like that's where you want to go. And now that those people who don't have transportation are going to have to travel to 5 or 6 different stores to get kind of the same thing. From what I'd say middle class and above, you know what, we were probably already going to a different Walmart or Target or somewhere because our Walmart had become very small, didn't have a lot of options. So I believe at that point Walmart just kind of looked and said, hey, we can track your credit card spending, and you guys are already going everywhere, and you'll continue to do that. Amazon, thank goodness. I mean, if you can imagine something like this happening to us in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, where you just wiped out a giant retail center, a much bigger deal. But with Amazon and other online people, you can have whatever you want at your door the next day. So quickly, after research, we found out retail was not likely to be in there. Just the logistics of the building. It only has one dock. So if you were to split that up into 20,000, 10, because it's 50,000 square feet, not really a good option either. So thankfully, the folks at the foundation started to be the first one to dream what could that be, or how do we bring a community center to our community? And then we said, well, we have 50,000 square feet available. The city worked with the former owner, Jay Cornett, real estate guy out of Connorsville, great guy that has worked with us. He pretty much gave us the property. There was a dollar amount, but much less than the retail value. So the city had that. The foundation could then go to Lilly, got $5 million. Since then, we've had Ready, which is a statewide kind of competition for dollars that goes to regions. We were able to get $4 million towards that. We've got new market tax credits. So there is a lot of money lining up to reinvent that space. We call it adaptive reuse. And if a small town is good, because I said small town economic development is like whack-a-mole. Fix that, this pops up. Fix that, this pops up. But the community center will be something that not just brings that building, there's a lot of those old buildings sitting around that have a flea market in it, or who knows what. Early on I was like, they'll need a go-kart track and things like that. It's like, all those would be okay, but there's a higher and better use for that property.
Right.
So it's going to end up being, I think it's like a $22 million project, funded from many different ways. That is actually being run by the Community Foundation, Economic Development. Once they get everything set up and running, it'll have its own entity, and they will be running that. So construction, they're hoping to start this year, April, May-ish maybe, with a 2024 completion date. So,
wow.
So that's one big project. Diamond Pet, kind of hard to miss if you come in from the north. Got a building starting to go up now. But that is a 700,000 square foot building, $259 million in investment, 170 new jobs that is occurring right now with, again, I think they're looking for a spring of 2024 completion. Huge deal. So two massive projects. The 22 million for the community center is the largest project I think we've ever taken on as a community, and that 259 million is by far, even if you do the math of the time change of money or whatever, right. That is enormous and likely the biggest investment that we've ever seen. Housing is something that we're working on really hard, because with 170 new people coming to town to work, our goal, and actually some of those will likely be people that were working somewhere else that can now work at home. Just looked at a report today on commuting patterns of our workers. It basically tracks how many people leave our community to go work, how many people come into our community to work, and then there's a stat that is basically how many live and work in Rush County.
Okay.
2012, that number is about 68%. And it's now climbed over 70%, which doesn't seem like a lot, but there's over 100 people who now live and work in Rush County than did 10 years ago. Right, so that's showing a good trend. You'd like to have more of your available workforce not have to drive and go somewhere. And that the most recent data was 2020. So kind of tells you that. But the housing, 16th and Spencer.
Yep.
That's Joiner Homes doing that. We've got our fourth home starting to be built right now. And those homes start at 250 plus lots. So you're probably 300 or more. Good for assessed valuation. And I had a lot of people in the apartments. If you remember when those first came out, nobody can pay that. They'll never pay that. But what people don't take into consideration is the people who aren't living here because what they want to live in doesn't exist here.
Exactly.
So we had no market rate apartments, no higher end homes, and now we have the ability for it could certainly be you or I decide I'd like to go there.
Right.
But it also opens it up to professionals at the hospital, NTAT trained Copeland that couldn't live here before. So that is when you change and you change so fast and it is sometimes hard to get the message out there, but I try to, with that I was like, I'm probably not going to live there because I follow the principles this guy talks about all the time, and I want a house that's paid for. And thank goodness, my goal was 50. It happened at 50 and a half.
Awesome.
Those are the things that just matter of how you live your life. And something I learned at Batesville and at Herdrick's, there's good, better, and best for a reason. Some people want the best, and they'll pay for it. Yep. Some people don't see value, and they want good, and there's plenty of us that probably fall in the middle somewhere. But that's been a principle I've used with so many things of just good, better, best.
Right.
How do you do it? And I'm going to guess when you think about the decisions you're making as a business, you probably fall in one of those lines, and I guarantee you your customer
right,
is
absolutely.
like, well, it's going to be this. Well, that's crazy. Well, I can do it for this, but you're going to get the warranty. You're not going to get the same material, those kind of things.
I mean, exactly what you said. We do the good, better, best some, and it'll fall to that best, like good, better. It'll fall to the better the statistics like 70% of the time, just because people don't always want the cheapest, but don't always want the most expensive. And I train our sales guys to like sell them what they need, like help them out, making this educational decision. Like some people want a standing seam metal roof, and some people a shingle roof because they're going to live there for 3 years. Like I remember a phone call I got from a guy in the community 4 years ago, and he's like, "Hey, I want to quote to put metal on my house." I was like, "All right, like what's your goal?" And he goes, "I'm probably going to sell it in 2 to 3 years." And I was like, "Well, don't pay me extra to put metal on it." I was like, "Just put a good shingle on it and you'll be good." He's like, "You're the first guy to say that." And I'm like, "I mean, I'll put on whatever you want, but at the end of the day, like taking care of them and doing what's best for them, is awesome." So yeah, no, that's excited about the community building just because like that'll be fun to see that parking lot full and something to do, and then maybe we'll quit hearing about the damn Walmart when you're in town.
And if you think of just that center, you go back to 2018, there's no Wendy's. Big O Tire's closed, there's nothing in it, and Walmart's empty. And now there's a new Wendy's. There's 3 different businesses in the Big O, and you got a community center on the way. I mean, that right there just kind of shows you the difference. And then I try to explain, too, whether it's roofing, construction, whatever it is, we've created a market, and it's not unlike a lot of rural communities. I don't know that all of them are prepared or trying to take advantage of it the best they can, but our inventory of homes is about as full as it can get. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of homes in the 2008, 2010, 11 era that were empty, that were falling apart, that didn't have a new roof on it, didn't have siding. The market shifted to the point where people can then take their money and invest it and feel good about that investment. And one of the first best investments they're going to do is get a roof on that thing. Because at that point they can wait 2 or 3 years to decide what they're going to do as long as they've got that thing watertight. So it's something that we've done. Our downtown buildings, there's a couple buildings that we got in the middle of because we knew if we didn't, you're going to have a lot of damage. So yeah, this wasn't planned, but given your industry here, good getting a good solid roof on there allows you to think what you're going to do down the road. But right now you have people that are and this is actually something that we're keeping an eye on because we have a lot of people that rent, obviously. And at one point, I'd say we were almost 65% rentals, 35% home ownership. That has shifted back, and I think maybe it might be 65-35 the other way. But what happens is you've got people, again, the same people that were affected by Walmart are now seeing their property come up, the lease come up, and the owner saying, you're going to have to get out of here because I'm selling the property. I'm able to make and pull equity out of that I wasn't able to for many, many years. That now sells as a home. It's great for us. The assessed valuation goes up. The house is going to be there for a long time. But what happens to those people? And then a lot of times they're younger. They might have kids. Those kids are important to the school system. I think the funding puts them in a right. Each kid's worth about $7,000 to the school system. So we've just got much better at tying that whole picture around and partnering with the county, partnering with the school, the chamber, the foundation, and that's really the difference between now and 10 or 15 years ago. Is there's more people on the bus, many people in the right spots, and we're all going in the same direction, which is positive. And what used to be battles over nothing is now, it might just be debate over what's the best method, best thing to do.
Well, and that kind of brings up like something that I'm part of. It's a revolt group. It's a mastermind of roofing owners from all over the country. There's a few that are in Indiana. None of them are like my direct competition, but we run into each other. But like we're willing to talk, and hey, this is working for me because every business has the same struggles. Every community has the same struggles. But it's cool to be part of this group because we're working together. Like, there's several guys that are a part of this group in Ohio, and we're starting to have, as big groups, we go on a couple retreats every year as 50, 60 guys, but there's like 6 or 8 of us that are going to start meeting more on a regional level just to help each other out. I was talking to 2 of them last night, so it's fun to see like really the teamwork. Like, like you said, you rattled off community, foundation, economic development, the city. Like there's a lot to go into, what we're doing here. And it's always cool to like when I tell somebody I'm from Rushville and they're like, man, they've really done a good job the last few years. And I'm like, absolutely. Like we were intentional when we came back. Like we were setting our roots in Rush County somewhere,
Yep.
And when we came back from Tennessee, that was very intentional. Like that's what I wanted to do. And it was just, for the family being close or just a rural community and people that care, what's going on, help out, that kind of stuff. And just, the trust and, the safety. And the crazy thing is I've been on a couple leads with a couple sales reps, and one lady, we were looking at a roof. She moved here from Florida, and I was like, how in the hell did you end up in Rushville from Florida with 0 connections, you know? And, there's actually a couple of people that I know and, or got to know that I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. We did a project on Morgan Street, and they came from Oregon.
Yep.
So that was that.
And
was
those
fun.
stories, those are they were the crazy stories that you just never heard of.
Right.
But I can probably give you 10 of those of the newest house being built out in the Joyner Homes area. They've never been to Rushville. They live out in California. They decided kind of had enough with whether it be the political, whatever it is. They're coming to this area. They get online. They start doing some searches. They figure out where they want to be. And whatever they found out on Rushville was something they liked. And they said, we're going to build a home there.
Yep. So
there's one. I hear Brian Campbell, who is another guy just through his business and what he's been able to do there. And most people think, well, it's a small local car lot. He sells cars and vehicles and boats, and he's got the big earth movers. And that. He sells that all over the United States. Sometimes that never even comes here, but a lot of times on his rental side of the business, they will reach out, just ask questions or whatever. And he's called me probably 4 times in the last 6 months. Hey, you got to hear the story. Here's a family coming here. Here's why they're coming here. They've got 2 kids. They've got, whatever that story is. And he goes, you hear enough of the negative. I always want you to hear when there's positive. But that tells us we're doing something right. There is more of a push now. It happens. It's a pendulum. We're moving the city. We're moving more rural. We're moving the city. We're now in a point where people are moving out to the rural communities, and we're trying to be ready for it, trying to get the housing. You talk about working together. The other thing is, I would say, everyone around us, we've got Connersville, Newcastle, Shelbyville, and Greensburg. We've got really good relationships with all of those people in our region, And through the Ready, which is that was the thing the governor, they had $500 million that they put towards projects throughout the state, and they awarded it by region. They're trying to do that again this year. But in that, we partnered with Shelbyville, Greensburg, and Batesville. And it was really neat to see how well we worked together, how we understood each other, how we could sell each other's projects. And just it developed even, kind of like what you're talking about, that regional group. And something I think when people would say, because we go leading the way in rural Indiana.
Right.
We started that, and we believe that we are one of the communities leading the way in rural Indiana, but it's also aspirational to stay there. If I'm going to keep saying that, then we've got to keep doing things to do that. And over the course of the last 6 years, we've presented kind of our Rushville story to over 50 communities in the state of Indiana. Some small, some large, some at like the Convention for Cities and Towns. So it is very nice to be a community of 6,200 that certainly has the eyes of potential people moving here, the state, other people, because the state or your business wants to invest, they want to feel good about that investment. Right. And right now, I think we're doing a good job of that. And I should certainly mention, I'm one of the soldiers or leader, whatever you want to say. But this all started with Mayor Pavey and a vision of, I want to be different. Mm-hmm. I want to figure out how we can get from where we are right now to where I see that we can be. And really, the last couple of years and the next 2 years, I think start to really fulfill that vision of, I don't know if you've ever done that exercise, but like I'm writing a letter to myself from 2030, and I see this and this. A lot of those things have been delivered or on the way, which is a testament to him, the team he's built. I'm one piece of that, but we talk about our department heads. If the department heads can't handle what they got to do, then we're having to drop down and deal with stuff that's day to day. And when you have solid department heads that can do that day to day, it leaves you time for the dreaming, the vision, where do you find the funding, all that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's so important. Like Zig Ziglar says that if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. And one thing with that, talking about legacy and talking about the revolt group that I'm part of, like we do an exercise there where they take grown men to a graveyard and you have to write your eulogy as you want your wife. What do you want your wife to say? Yep. When you're sitting in that casket? What do you want your kids to say? What do you want community members? What do you want the people that you're leading? What do you want Mason Gordon to say about you? Stuff like that. Yep. And you want to see a bunch of grown men bawl like babies.
Oh yeah,
and it's like, it's like, holy cow, I want to grow a business, and it's always funny because I had a vision of being something different, no different than Mayor Pavey, people are going to call you crazy, and it's always funny because I always get enjoyment when somebody's like, Bob Hoel's doing what now? I make a hire and they're like, well, your business isn't big enough to have a marketing person. I'm like, well, maybe not nearsighted right now, but we're running this on a cash basis. We're taking a small salary to grow this. Last year when a lot of roofing companies slowed down, we still had a 20% increase. I said, hey guys, I appreciate everybody here, but I was like, when I hired Bobby Ann and people were rumbling, what's he doing? It was like, I knew, I at least thought I knew what I was doing,
Yep.
And it's just, it's so important to look ahead. And that's the only thing that's getting the community center there. When I heard about it, I was excited. I was like, that's pretty cool because I had kind of just accepted Rushville and never really have something like that. Not in a negative way, but it was just as a business guy, I understand, people may want O'Charlie's or Texas Roadhouse in Rushville, but when they can't fill it, no business person is going to go there. You can't,
And the only way you get there is by doing the right things and then seeing for us, seeing our community grow or your customer base grow. But yeah, my position was one when it was first announced, how can they do that? They got budget issues, and we built capacity that allowed us to do more faster.
Yep.
And in my case, I got to do a lot of fundraising projects where, there was one raising money for the For the city center, I paid for my wage 5 times. Getting Stellar, that was a $14 million project that came here. And I said, I didn't win Stellar by myself, but we wouldn't have won Stellar without me in this position.
Right.
So, you start to see that value. And if you can't have the value, and I said that back then too, it's like, if I'm 2 years into this and I'm providing no value, then I'll be the first to say, right. I'll go do something different.
Right.
So it really is nice. Just passion. I always say, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but if you want something bad enough, the world conspires to make it happen.
Absolutely, yes.
And it does over and over and over. And then when you hear the word no, it's like, well, I don't think you understand how hard we're willing to work. So, but thank you for motivation.
Yes. A good friend of mine, Hunter Blue, he wrote a book called "Make It Count." I'm going to give you a copy of it, and in it, I'm going to totally butcher this because it's live and I'm not thinking here, but it's like, for those who doubted me, thank you for the motivation to continue when I wanted to quit, and those who supported me, thank you for the belief in me. And it's like, holy cow, like there's a lot of truth to that. And it's just like, there's always hardship, and you have to think ahead, and you also have to just let stuff bounce off of you, and you literally got to get up the next day. It was snowing this morning and my sales team was in here doing some training. No, it's not going to pay off for them today because it's snowing and nobody's getting on the roof. However, what they just learned, may make them $10, $20, $30,000 this summer when things break loose, so, and it's cool to hear the surrounding communities, because us as a company, we're part of Rushville Chamber. We're also part of Greensburg Chamber. And we do really well in kind of the cities that you mentioned, just organically growing. I laugh because 2 of my sales reps live in St. Paul. 2 of them lives in Shelbyville, and I finally just hired a guy full time out of Rushville, but he moved here from Florida. So my first full time sales rep that's in Rushville has no ties to Rushville. He moved from Florida. And but especially we go east, like Connorsville, Liberty, Centerville, there's so much opportunity for us, and there's just, like I said, it's cool to see that you guys working together, because at the end of the day, you guys are just trying to make East Central Indiana, or whatever region you want to call it, a better place to, bring in factories, because that there's going to be somebody from Greensburg that's probably going to stay living in Greensburg but work at the dog food plant, and that's okay, So
and really, those commuting patterns are so interesting to me. We've always been in a region that was Rush, Fayette, Union, Wayne, Randolph, and then Henry County, I think, entered there as well. And you get put into different regions for different. There's a million different regions. They never really tie together.
Right.
And the ARA region, or ARI region. Accelerate Rural Indiana, really ties us well. And then when you look at those community patterns, the number of people coming back and forth from Shelbyville and Greensburg is huge. Connorsville is actually a very large one, where we have, I think, 250 more come here than go there. But we're very well connected to those. Richmond, love Mayor Snow up there is an awesome guy, but they send 33 or 34 this way, we send 33 that way. We're just not connected with those commuting patterns, and getting where people are working and coming back and forth starts to build those natural regions. And for us, it's likely our biggest 2 is Shelbyville, Greensburg, and then obviously Henry County sends a bunch down here to NTAT as kind of a tie-in, and Connorsville, a little bit of everything. But yeah, when you start looking for those, and then where do we shop? Well, we shop at any of those communities around us, whichever you're closest to get to the large retail center. But no, it's fascinating work. It's so much fun. And I've been blessed that, the places I mentioned I worked, every single one of those was better off than when I got there. And every single one of those I could go back, to tomorrow, which is, that's how I really, really, really enjoy being a part of a team, being part of a successful team. But I think just that happiness part too, that you never burn any bridges, and hopefully if you're doing anything, you're building new ones that allow you to go somewhere.
I should probably take some lessons of that for you, because I'm like the burn the ship mentality, and not necessarily, but I mean what you say, And that's always good because I've had, and it's also always good when people you work for, your leaders, like encourage you or be happy, like that you're going to a better fit, and that's what I tell my team this on a very regular basis. Like, I want you where you need to be. If it's not here, or if it's a different seat on the bus here, that's fine, because it's better off for me, you, our customers, the community, everything. But I also tell them that I genuinely want them to look back and be like, you know what, that 2 years or that 3 years that I worked for Bob and Emily, like, they really did love us. They really did pour into us. Like, they were intentional about making me a better person. And that's one thing I stole from working for Dave Ramsey. Like, in the interview process, they're like, we want your spouse, we want your family to be like, you're different, like, with working there, like, because that's, and I always tell, we do our interviews way different. Like, we usually do several interviews, and one of them is at the end, we go out to eat with them and their spouse, just to talk, and as our team grows, like, I'm starting to be able to delegate that on the next hire. I told Ellie that her and Bryce can take them that next hire out if it falls under kind of her leadership or whatever. Same thing. I just promoted a sales manager, or in the process of Nick, and I told him that him and Taylor can do that with the next sales hire, and just that builds another level of, like, because I tell them, like, I want their spouse to support us, and because I know how hard small business is. It's no different than how hard it is to work and grow a small rural community, so it's like they have to be cheering, Heather has to be excited that you're going to work today, because you're going to get the freaking negative Nancy's, and you do a good job of knocking them off, but I know that as a human, like, there's some days that you're like, really? Oh, yeah. Like,
and usually on those days I got to coach my wife into not getting on social media. Like, no, it's fine. I'm a big boy. I can handle it.
But that's funny, because during COVID, I would share memes, and my wife made a rule that if it was after 10 o'clock, I wasn't allowed to share it. And it wasn't like I drank or anything weird like that. It was just like I got a little feisty, like, oh my gosh, honey, this is hilarious. And she's like, we own a business. I was like, I don't care if people don't laugh at this. I said, I don't want them as a customer, So, but yeah, No, I get that, because, your wife loves you and supports you and knows your heart and what your intentions are. Like, some of the stuff I hear, like, oh, Rushville's got the crookedest, politics around. And it's like, I mean, I know for a fact that Mayor Pavey could go work somewhere else and make a hell of a lot more money than what he makes for the mayor of Rushville.
Well, I said my 2011 Impala with a broken taillight, that's not a show. But no, I really appreciate what you guys do, the opportunity, and I am serious that at some point I want to see what you guys do, and then I got to show you my happiness seminar sometime.
Well, I was going to talk about this off air, but we can talk about it on here. Like, I want to bring you in and just do when we have a team meeting. I've actually been wanting to be more intentional of having, like, a special guest in, and that's awesome, because I'm glad you said something, because Chip West there at Main Street Christian Church, I built a relationship with him, and we don't even attend there, and he was kind of one on my radar to have come in and talk to the team, because, like, I really do. I always say this, I want a leadership company here that happens to sell roofing, siding, and gutters.
That's awesome.
And some people don't get that, but a lot of people understand, like, oh my gosh, like, I know exactly, what's going on. And I also, like I said, I want people to be used at their talent. And if they come in, like, I mean, I hired Adam, and when he came in, he pretty much would do anything we needed. If we needed to go get a dump trailer from a job site, he would. If he had to put gloves on and pick up shingles on the ground, whatever. And I was like, Adam, here's the vision. Like, we're going to move you more into, the marketing, the video stuff. And then, like, I'm Mr. like, I call myself Pull the Trigger Bob. And I was like, man, we're going to do a podcast. And I text a good friend of mine in the roofing space, and he texts me back, like, a list of stuff. And then, like, I started pricing that stuff, and I'm like, golly, I said I wanted the tax write-off before the end of the year, but I didn't realize what, and I just ordered it. And then I text my buddy. I was like, you seem to own, like, a bunch of different businesses. Do you own this business that sells this, And he started laughing. He goes, no, but he goes, bud, I've had a podcast for 2 years. He's like, this is the stuff that I've eventually gotten to that I've pieced together. He's like, you'll be happy with it, so that I'm like, Adam, we're doing it. He's like, I mean, he was excited, so that was a lot of fun. And then we had one piece that just kept kicking our freaking butt, that, like, they'd ship the wrong one, Yeah, or well, we ordered the wrong one, and then they shipped the right one, and then it like sat in Indy for like 4 days, and I called them, and it's like the one thing keeping the camera from working.
We're on the way to pick it up.
Yes, and I was like, I want another one, or they're like, well, we'll try to process it, and I'm like, just bill me for another one and send it. And they're like, well, what do you want to do about that one? I was like, refund it to me. And I said, if it shows up, I'll send it back to you because I don't need 2 of them. And, you know, it was kind of, once again, it was one of them things that everything went really smooth, but that one part that was like to help get over the hump and get it done, you know. So, but yeah, no, certainly let's any resource I can be, of course. And, you know, I'm trying to do better at building, you know, the relationships. Like, yeah, if you want to come in and talk, just because that's always good for the team. Like I really don't talk a whole lot about roofing much. I mean, we talk about some of the issues we have on, you know, things to get better on our end of communication or whatever. But, you know, I would rather do a way more leadership stuff or, you know, mindset. Like you said, like, you know, there's so much power into that people think, you know, I hate to say this, but the grumpy, miserable people are like, oh, that's just fluff. But you're grumpy and miserable. Oh, yeah. So, like, well, why am I going to take your advice on that?
One of the things in the happiness seminar that, and I built it with a former boss down at Batesville Casket. And what was wild is right about the time I finished it, my wife found out she had breast cancer. And so here's this happiness seminar or this happiness, you know, guidebook, I guess, that I built. And now I'm entering, you know, one of the toughest parts of my life, certainly hers, and it was just crazy how it just all fit together. It was almost like, hey, you got to figure that out, and that's right when I left Batesville, came back to Herdricks, so then I was home, and you know those things don't happen out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
I was prepared to do that, but there is a part in there where my grandma used to say, "Getting old ain't for sissies," and I've just put, "Being positive ain't for sissies," because most people think it just comes naturally, and no, it's hard work. Right. And don't think that it doesn't always go exactly how you want it to.
Well, it's funny because this morning, like, a couple things just kept going wrong, and I was like, I caught myself in a bad mood. I was like, freaking Brian Sheehan's going to be here doing a podcast. Like, I can't be in a bad mood, you know. And I yelled at my kid because he's out of school. The kids are out of school today with the snow and everything. And I was just like, all right. And I always remind myself, like, I set the tone in the office, like, you know, and there's days that, you know, you have rough days. And, you know, that's ironic that you bring up with Heather's cancer and everything, because that was one of the first times that, like, I met you. You were up at a gas station in Indy because I believe you guys sold fuel or delivered the fuel.
Yep, Herdricks.
And you guys had attended Plum Creek Christian Church. At that time, I was on the leadership team out there, and I just done communion, and I remember you said something to me. I was like, oh, hey, Brian, like, because we were in the southeast side of Indy, kind of in the not the nicest part of town, you know. And I was like, oh, hey, and I mean, I remember you being like, you know, hey, that hit me hard, and I'm like, all right, because, like, especially when you're doing anything, like the words of encouragement is always good, because it's like a lot of days you're like, why am I doing this? And, you know, and especially like when you're in a church setting, it's like, well, who are you going to offend? You know what I mean? Like, you weren't godly enough, or you were too ungodly, you know, and it was just like nobody's happy, it seems like, with anything. So,
and as I've found that the person there to prop you up and the person to smack you down, it's almost like they're sent to you at the right time. Like, I can handle it here, or at least I've been blessed with, you know, whichever way I need the inspiration, they kind of show up. But it is unbelievable, the social media stuff that we do and we put out there. The positive people just don't comment. Right. And you know, when I see them out in public, they'll say, "Hey, you're doing it, you know, great job." So it is important for those people to do that. But I try to convince more and more of them to say, put something positive on there. Because people go to social media, I think, to kind of like, it's the quick vote. How are things going? It's like, well, the concert series, for example, we put that out there, and we had maybe 2, not even negative, just like, I wish so-and-so would be there. You know, that's unbelievable to have 300 comments and they're all positive. Right. But it is important that's your little piece of, and with my kids, I always say, just improve. All right. Sometimes I leave the house, I'm going to improve the world. Right. Then I've just explained, in the world is that which is closest to me. That's what I can control and make a difference in. And
well, I always, what happens in your house is way more important than whatever happens in the White House. And not to get political or anything like that, but sometimes we so focus on what's going on in the White House, the Democrats, the Republicans, and when you're that far disconnected, they're all the same freaking, they've all got their hands in somebody's back pocket, and
somebody very interested in local politics, but I've said, it is unfortunate that I have my vote and I can make my stand, but it is very difficult for me to influence Washington.
Right.
I can influence what happens here. I can influence the county. To a certain extent, I might be able to influence some pieces of state government, but it's that's that whole circle of influence, circle of concern. What can I make a difference on? I've just tried to focus on that.
So. Well, and I mean, if you just think your daughter coming back to teach, like how many people's lives is she going to affect by coming back? That I always say this, like how many lives can I affect by starting this business that will never know my name? And I'm completely fine like that. Like one of our sales reps, he's quitting a factory job. He's been working part-time and he's been working full-time for us, but still a full-time factory job. And he's waiting for he's got a couple deals brewing, but until the weather breaks that he can completely, rely on this income as a sales rep. But, he's got a little stepson that's 3-4 years old. And I'm like, man, like his little stepson's kids are going to be affected by him coming in here, him being in a positive work environment. Of course, he's going to hopefully make more money. But that's just a byproduct of like, how is his life, going to be effective? And, it's always fun because, especially like our sales is 100% commission. So I tell them, if you come in and work my system, you're going to make money. But if you don't, you're not going to. And it's always cool because like the more I hire, the slower I am at doing it, just because I'm like, I want the right fit. Mm-hmm. Like I've made some really stupid hires, and it's bit me really, really hard, and I literally am still dealing with one yesterday on a job, but, it's always cool to see like one of them sales reps, like we met him and his wife, and he was kind of on the fence, and we're just at this get together with a bunch of people, and I'm just who I am, and I just kind of shoot it straight. Like, we've had some success here. The guys that are having success, like, me and Emily, we work together as a husband and wife, and that's not the easiest thing. And there's some days that we're a little snippy at each other. I think we do a pretty decent job for relying on one, this as our sole income, But after the conversation, I didn't even try to pitch them to come and work for me. They went to leave that little party, and the wife's like, you need to be at that office by 8. And this is on a Saturday. He's like, you need to be in the office by 8:30 on Monday. You're not going to let this opportunity pass up. And like, she was sold. What I come to find out, she was been leery about it for 6 months before that. Like, oh, they can't treat you that good, and you can't make that money or whatever, like you can't be that happy going to work. And then it's like, it's so cool because he just came to me yesterday. He's like, I'm going to sign this one and I'm quitting that job. And I was like, that's fine, buddy. But I said, winter, we're still in winter. Like, and he goes, we got money. And that's another thing that our team is attractive. We've attracted some of these sales reps that they come to me and I'm like, hey man, sales is slow in the beginning. It's hard to make money the first couple of months. And they're like, oh no, I got $5,000 or $10,000 saved. And I'm like, that's kind of cool because it's no different. You being positive, you attract positive people. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of cool for us as our company. One of our core values is generosity. The Dave Ramsey stuff is like, I talk about it. Some people get, I drive them nuts. But it's kind of cool now that we're starting to attract people like that. And then, the best part for me was the end of last year. Like I had 3 people that work for me and they're like, I just want to thank you. Like my bank account has the most in it that it's ever had. And like I said, like that's not always important. Like you found your calling on what you're doing and your bank account isn't as big as it could be if you were still in Batesville. And that's okay too, so it's fun to like pour into people. I always joke because a lot of my sales reps are like, they're in their mid 20s. And I always joke and say, they're my kids from my first relationship and my young kids are with my wife, and which doesn't really make sense because I'm on 35, but it's hilarious because I love these guys, but it's always like, hey, send a picture, hey, or calling them, hey, you forgot that? Oh, I had one kid, I love him. I love Chris to pieces. He lost his MacBook, went and bought a new one, opened his sales book bag he carries, old MacBook sitting right there. But anyways, Brian, I really appreciate your time. If you got anything you want to close with, I don't care if it's, hey, smile, or, hey, talk, your, what do you call your talk?
The
happiness talk. Okay.
Yeah. No.
Or happiness seminar.
Yeah. At this point, it is, the older you get, the more you realize that, people that have, and I would say dollars, good relationships, whatever, they worked at it, and it's obvious that you have that. And being here this morning and seeing all the kids running around, and all, that's a positive thing too. That the family's going to be a part of what you're doing. We've really focused hard to be able to do that. For me to be able to give up some of my time and talent to be a part of what we've been able to do, and to leave that behind with my kids. At one point, if you went to school here and you stayed here, I think there was a little bit of a stigma that you failed in some way, shape, or form. And I think if there's anything I'm super, super proud of, it is that's not the case anymore. It's just a choice. And I always tell people, you want to live in a big city and be able to walk to every, we're not going to be able to compete with that.
Right.
If you want a nice, safe place to live with more and more entertainment every day in a small confines, the things that you watch TV to watch the movies, it's like the Hallmark Channel. All it does is tell you that, hey, move to Rushville or places like it. Certainly around the holidays, then if somebody makes that selection, first, I want to live in Indiana. I want to live in a rural setting. Man, we want to be one of the best choices for that, and we also want to be a place people like yourself would like to invest some money and be a big part of it. So, thank you so much for the opportunity, for all you do, and I know in talking you've had a few of these. I told you the other day, I wanted to see what I was up against, so I did watch you and your wife while I was in bed, which it seemed strange, but especially when my wife was sleeping, she didn't want to be a part of it, I guess. But what you're doing is making a difference in many people's lives, and we thank you for it.
Well, and that to flip that right back at you, same thing. Like your willingness to leave the corporate job is a big part. The foundation you laid in the city is what made me want to start a company here. And, that's affected that Adam has a job that he really enjoys with his talents. Like, I texted Adam's sister the other day and I said, he's doing a great job. And she goes, he talks all the time about working for you guys. And she's like, it's always good. But, it's fun. Like, he's out doing videos of small businesses and stuff. And it's fun. He comes back like jacked up and excited. And he's like, he's giving me all these details. And I'm like, Adam, trim it down to like 30 seconds. I was like, I've got 20 things, but I'm excited, to see that. And, and it's that legacy that you're going to leave. And seriously, thank you for that. And if there's anything that we can ever help with you guys, I personally thank you. Like, my daughter was the Christmas on Main princess for Canned Food Drive. Like, she loved that. I hate to admit this, the Montgomery, or however you guys call it, I'm not Montgomery Gentry now, but that concert was the first one we had gotten down to. We're just busy and young kids, and that was a blast. Like,
I have to tell you, everybody said, so how are you going to outdo what you did last year? I said, unfortunately, I can't say I can, because we had a bigger budget, but that night was magical.
Yeah.
It felt like a festival, and who knows where, and people from all over the place. I think we thought 5,000 to 6,000 people. And again, that's just staying steady at it. That group, Riverside Park, been active since 2005. Early concerts had 250 people.
Yep.
And you just keep going. It's right. But yeah, if you made it to that one, that was I was flying pretty high that evening with the end of the bicentennial, being able to put that show together. One, the weather screws up, you pay.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of rolling of the dice that night, and it couldn't have gone better. So yes, you have to get back down there this summer, and I'll finish with this because I forgot.
Awesome. Riverside
Park, June 10th, Walker County. It's a country group. Two girls that were originally out of Henry County. They're now a national act. June 24th, 84 Van Halen. July 15th, Electric Avenue, so an 80s kind of party evening. July 22nd, Traveling Salvation, which is Neil Diamond tribute. August 19th, Turn the Page, Bob Seger tribute. And September 16th will be the 50th anniversary of Pink Floyd. We have a Pink Droid They've been here before. They got an amazing light show. And then July 29th, if you so choose to partake in adult beverages, we have Libations by the Levee back for the 6th year, which is the beer and wine festival from vendors only in Indiana. So they got to make their own to be able to come to that festival. So that wraps it up. But thank you guys so much for your hospitality.
Yep, thank you.